Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, really excited about today's conversation. Jim Starlin, Jaimie Jameson, the team behind Dreadstar. Now you might remember Dreadstar, that was Jim's creator-owned concept that started in the 80s during the wonderful direct market period, and he's bringing it back now. He has brought back some new volumes, as well as reprinting the classic run as well, and has big plans moving forward, both he and Jaimie, regarding the new direction for Dreadstar. I'm so glad they're picking up the series. This is a terrific book. Of course, we've all loved things that Jim Starlin has done at DC and, of course, at Marvel. Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, all those wonderful stories, the creation of Thanos, and so many of the Marvel cosmic characters. I even make him talk a bit about his time at DC and things like Mystery in Space and Strange Adventures and the New Gods, but more importantly, what led to the Infinity Gauntlet, and that was Jim's work on Batman and the death of Jason Todd, a very big milestone in the history of Batman. We retell that story and more in this wonderful conversation. Jaimie Jameson and Jim Starlin talking Dreadstar on today's Word Balloon. Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex is doing a CGC Signature Series signing opportunity for fans. You can send in your stuff to Alex to sign at cgc.com for details. Hurry though, the offer ends May 5th. Word Balloon is brought to you by my followers, the League of Word Balloon Listeners. That's the name I gave my followers through Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Listen, things are tough this year. I won't deny it for me financially. If you've ever considered supporting Word Balloon, I could really use your help. So if you think Word Balloon is worth the price of a comic book, even $1 a month would be greatly appreciated. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you very much for your patronage and your attention, the League of Word Balloon listeners. If you subscribe to Word Balloon, I will send you an email that will have a domino mask and cape and a nice League of Word Balloon listeners emblem that you've seen here on Word Balloon as well. But thank you for your support. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Welcome, everybody. This is great. I'm very excited to be doing this panel. We're talking about cosmic comics, specifically the great series Dreadstar. I certainly remember when Dreadstar was a brand new book back in the direct market, and it was a thrill because the creator, one of these people, had already established themselves as a fantastic creator of space opera. And forgive me. Well, I figured out more the guy next to you and everything. Don't get me wrong. But I'm really thrilled. This is the modern Dreadstar team. And I first of all, Jaimie, forgive me, your last name.
Jameson.
Jaimie Jameson.
Not Jenna. Not Jenna.
No. Absolutely not. So, Jaimie Jameson, everybody. And, again, the litany of characters that he's created, goes without saying. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about his creation, Dreadstar, the great Jim Starlin, everybody. I'm John Suntress. I host a podcast called Word Balloon. It's at wordballoon.com, where I have the opportunity to talk to creators such as Jaimie and Jim. So this is a great opportunity. Man, a lot going on with Dreadstar, Jim, and I know, too, that there were some plans prior to the strikes that are going on right now, development plans potentially for TV.
Well, we had it sort of set up with, we definitely had it set up with the Sci-Fi Channel with a producer named J.C. Spinks.
But that was way before the strikes.
That was way before the strikes, and things looked like they were going along well until J.C. went and died on us.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes.
Don't do drugs.
Fentanyl and cocaine.
Oh, well, there you go. No. I'm a weed guy. Everything.
That's not a drug anymore.
All right, there you exactly. I know exactly. That's great. Oh my God. Yeah.
Things got tied up for a while, and now we're talking to folks again out there in LA, and just prove that the universe has a sense of humor, everyone went on strike just as we were getting somewhere.
Yes, they did. They're
So,
striking everywhere.
Yeah, so we're just going to put that on hold, and Jaimie and I are working on the book now. We're putting our concentration on that. We've had the first one come out, Dreadstar Returns. Dreadstar versus the Inevitable is at the printer as we speak.
Wow.
Yep.
Finally, because we had such... The first book we sent out was through Ominous Press.
I remember, yes.
Right, and Ominous sort of exploded because something was going on with the head down. And so we've taken the best people from Ominous and they've gone over to Monkey Wrench Press, where we're going and doing Dreadstar now. If you stop by the table later on, we have cards with QR codes, is that what they call
Yeah,
them?
I'll give you all the information. You can sign on to the like their mailing list. And
Yeah, and they'll send you information about how to get it. So the first two books will be coming to the printer and available for advance orders. We're working on getting into the comic book stores. We're making you work to read this damn book at this point.
actually, if nobody's familiar with Dreadstar, we are going to do a reprinting of the very first issue, a limited run of 200, which are going to be coming from Neil Adams' Krusty Bunker. It's going to be, we might keep going with those, but they're going to be an original cover, only 200. So if anybody wants more information on those, let me know. And if you're not familiar with Dreadstar, you should definitely read the first issue.
Absolutely, and it is such a great series. And, you know, again, Jim was able to build on the cosmic stuff he created for Marvel, but then obviously be able to do his own thing. Jaimie, how did you get involved with Dreadstar?
I annoyed him to death.
Yeah, boy, did she ever.
I'm not kidding. I really annoyed him to death. I made this gauntlet for him. Yes, you'll get it eventually.
Yes.
Somebody lost the yellow stone, and so I have to replace the yellow stone. But I made this paper mache wood sculpture of the gauntlet.
Wow.
And I was like harassing him for a picture, a sketch.
Not of some Thanos or anybody who I had any really thing to do with. Who did you want to sketch of?
Dr. Doom and only Dr. Doom. Only Dr. Doom. And he was like, no, I don't want to do Doom. You didn't even ask me for Thanos. So I'm like, I need a Dr. Doom.
I better segue in here at this point and say that I hadn't been drawing anything for about 3 years at this point because I'd had an accident with a compressed air device
Not funny,
that blew a big hole in my hand, and so
Oh my
I didn't
God.
draw for about 3 years.
It also affected his hearing. He does not mention the fact that he was really messed up from this. But I said, you don't know if you can draw if you don't try.
And I said, well, whenever I draw, I get cramps, but
He
eventually-
squeezed rubber balls.
And there were other exercises involved other than squeezing rubber balls, but it had been 3 years of trying to get the hand working again and dreaming about drawing, but not actually drawing because my hand would freeze up, and she kept pestering me at conventions. She'd go, oh, please do this.
Might have mentioned I was inking Keith Giffen at the time.
Right.
On what?
So I was working with the most silly and annoying person in the industry. So I can be really annoying when I'm around somebody so obnoxious, right? It makes it easy working with Keith.
Well, I can't let that go. Wait a minute. What were you working on with Keith?
We were working on several things. I'd ink at shows, and but we were doing Gentleman Ghost Story. We were working on some of my own creations, and he wanted
Cool.
to be on the bullpen. So we were working on a number of things. So we hung out quite a bit. But yes, I kept harassing him.
So one night, I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm going, it was at a convention, and I sat down and did this head sketch of Dr. Doom, and at the end I was very surprised to find my hand didn't cramp up. So I gave it to her the next day,
Finally.
and she had been working at the table next to me supposedly with Keith, but Keith didn't show up.
As usual.
Well, this is actually the next convention we were at.
Oh.
Yes, and so I thought I'd do a couple of convention sketches. I did some drawings of different characters and brought them in pencil. And she didn't have anything to do. So I said, you want to try and ink these things while you're sitting here? And she did, and I was impressed by him. And Dan DiDio was impressed by it too.
Way to go.
And he asked us to do a Metal Man cover together, which we did.
Well, actually, he asked me and Keith to do it, and then he asked you to do it, and you asked me to ink it.
Right.
Fair enough.
Same thing, just a roundabout route.
Two jobs in one go.
Way to go.
So that's got us going, and when I finally decided I was going to bring Dreadstar back, I approached her and said, how would you like to ink Dreadstar? It's only 100 pages.
I had asked him if he was ever going to bring it back several times. Mind you.
Yeah. So I said, how would you like to ink Dreadstar? And she hesitantly said yes, and then began to freak out.
Yes, I did.
Go ahead, tell us the freak out. Your story.
I got the pages, and I was like, I cannot do this. I'm sending them back. It was like, this is overwhelming. It's a big stack of pages. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the biggest job I've ever done. And I was actually at Neil Adams' The Crusty Bunker, I'll say it again. And Neil was there, and he's always working, drawing, like he always was. And he's like, just put down the first line. I was like, just put down the first line. I might really screw this up. And he was like, white paint. So I put down that first line and was like, I didn't screw it up. So I kept going, and then I quit 100 times.
Oh, she did quit. To make it fair, she got COVID like half dozen times.
Oh, you poor thing.
I got it really bad and almost died. I was really sick.
Yeah.
So when I was quitting, it's because I thought I was going to die.
At least 3 different vacations.
Oh, I've had it 5 times.
Yeah, I know it was a ridiculous amount, but the last ones haven't been as severe as the first two. The first 2 were.
You know, John McCrae, the wonderful artist, he had long-term COVID. I was just telling another artist. Yeah, and it really messed up his art.
Anybody that has the vaccine that got screwed up, because here she is right here, and Pam Hanna, Scott Hanna's wife, is another one. We're like, it did a number on people, so yeah, I kept quitting.
No, I understand.
And I kept saying, yes, okay, you quit.
But I just sent
when
you
can I
10
expect the rest of the pages? So I just paid no attention to her, and it worked out okay. We got the first book done, and we're
in the 3rd book now.
Yeah, we're in the 3rd book. We got the 2nd book done.
Outstanding.
I'm lost track. And you're 20 pages into this.
20 pages into the 3rd book.
The first book is Dreadstar Returns. The 2nd book is Dreadstar versus the Inevitable. The 3rd book is Dreadstar versus Dreadstar, where another Dreadstar will show up that you've seen from the past. And then something happens, and the 4th book is called Where's Dreadstar? And I haven't got a title for the 5th one yet.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Jim, for people who may only know you from your Marvel work or even your DC work, give them and I do want people to buy this limited #1. But yeah, if you two wouldn't mind explaining the concept of Dreadstar just for the audience and everything.
And I guess without a 2nd act.
Cheat.
Well, yeah. The great Jack Kirby once told me that the Hulk was stupidity, that the harder you beat on it, the stronger it becomes. So I've always tried to, when I do any character, I want to be able to summarize it in 1 sentence. And Dreadstar is an anarchist with a magic sword who has no 2nd act. He's really good at toppling evil empires and not so good at the follow-up. So that's what he does. He goes around getting rid of tyrants. And he has this sort of magic sword to do it. And he has these friends. In the beginning, there was a character named Sisji Darklock, who was a sorcerer who didn't make the cut at the end of the first story, but he was a regular character. There's Eddie the Catman.
He's my favorite.
He's her favorite. There's Willow, who is a cybernetic telepath with telekinetic powers. In other words, not only can she read minds and move things with her mind, her brain, mind.
People can move things with their hands, too.
She can also deal with AIs and command computerized devices. We had Skibo for a while, who was their procurer.
The name Skibo says it all.
Skibo Platus is the whole name. We got Fix now.
You forgot Two-Tone.
Well, I'm working my way toward Two-Ton. Two-Ton is a 12-foot monstrous guy with a mohawk whose main power seems to be falling off things. And on his way down before he hits
And throwing
down.
cats. Throwing cats.
Oh, throwing cats. We threw that into the latest issue. And his favorite phrase is, "Not again," as he's falling. But that's sort of the cast thread at the moment. Am I missing anyone?
Just Madam, well, yes, there's a lot of characters,
Yeah,
but those are the main ones.
Those are the main ones. And
Oh, Lord Piggle.
Well, the Lord Papal is a bad guy who
Yes.
was from the original
But he's
thing.
still a major character.
Yeah, he keeps popping up. The first book is Dreadstar Returns is an unrequited cosmic love story. The second book, Dreadstar versus the Inevitable, is about accepting your own limits and dealing with what you cannot control. Third one, Dreadstar versus Dreadstar, family drama. You can imagine how this one's going to end. Where's Dreadstar is, I decided I wanted to do a whole book without Dreadstar in it, and so I let all
And I
the
was
other characters
so happy to
draw.
not have to draw Dreadstar's call.
He shows up in the first few pages, and then it becomes everybody else's book, and they have to deal with it. And everyone's going, "Where's Dreadstar?" In fact, I did if you come down by the table, we have the cover for the fourth book on the table. I did a "Where's Waldo?" Dreadstar cover.
I found both of them. I'm not going to tell you who else is in there, but there's two that you might remember from DC. But I found Dreadstar within seconds, probably because I know it's called. But yeah, it's pretty fun. We have the poster if you want to come find him.
Yes, and that's the one where he disappears. And the fifth one is sort of going to be the conclusion of this five. These each 100-page long.
Wow.
These graphic novels.
Yeah.
So the fifth one is sort of the conclusion, in which I haven't got a name for. Sort of tentatively calling it Dreadstar Encounters in Omnipotence or something like that.
No, we've not finished discussing this title.
I don't like that.
It sounds too much like impotence.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna work something out like that better than that.
Yes.
The Almighty. Yeah. Dreadstar versus the Almighty.
Are you crowdfunding these books?
Yes,
Yes.
Kickstarters.
Okay, good.
So we do, like I said, the QR codes. If you want the information, you'll get the heads up with the Kickstarters. And usually when you sign up on the Kickstarter, you get some extra added bonus stuff. So,
But we've done the first two books, so
Kickstarter will be the third book.
I think like in about 6 months we're going to do Dreadstar versus Dreadstar. We do the Kickstarter, but the QR code will get you to where you need to buy advanced copies of these things.
Are you offering the first two volumes then as well
Yes.
for the third book campaign?
Yeah,
Great.
we're printing them both right now.
Sure.
And, the actual reprint's got a new cover, so it's even
Cool.
weirder.
And again, they're going to be available in stores. We're working on that now. So, but
Yeah.
we don't know when.
Well, but the great thing is, and I'm sure others who have supported Kickstarter, it's kind of, it helps the creators make the books, and usually, it is a special edition as opposed to whatever eventually makes it to the stores.
Well, actually, yeah, our first one from Ominous Press, we're out of them. I think I'm the
There you
only
go.
one that has any left, from personal. I'm like, that's not enough. I need all these. They're totally different. Once those were gone, they were gone. So, yeah.
Jim, when you were creating Dreadstar, was there, that was I love talking to creators from this period because it really was this liberating moment. It's common now that so many creators will do their own thing, but this was really kind of bold moves. And, you had Eastman and Laird with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but so many other named creators, too, were dipping their toes in the water and saying, yeah, let me do my own thing. Were there restrictions at Marvel from the cosmic stuff you were doing there that you're like, well, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want with Dreadstar and everything? What was your thought in terms of creating Dreadstar?
Well, at the time, Congress had changed the copyright law. Up until that point, if you worked for Marvel or DC, in order to endorse your check, you had to sign away your rights. On the back of each check, it said, I'm giving up my rights in order to get this paycheck cash.
It was like a mini contract, literally on the backs of these checks.
And finally, somebody in Congress said, well, this isn't right, and you got to stop doing this, in which case the term work for hire came into existence, actually. And a lot of us at that time decided we weren't going to work for Marvel under the terms that they were, Marvel or DC, under the terms that they were doing that. Bernie Wrights and Barry Smith, Mike Kaluta,
Jeffrey Jones.
Jeff Jones.
The studio.
They all went off and did their own things. Howard Chaykin
Yep.
wouldn't work with them. I think Simonson avoided him for a while, but he went back eventually.
Yeah.
I eventually went back and did some work with him too, but during that time, the great editor, Archie Goodwin, set up the Epic comic line up at Marvel, which was an offshoot. It started off as Epic Illustrated, which was sort of a heavy metal kind of magazine.
Sci-fi fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, and the Metamorphosis Odyssey was where Dreadstar started. And he wasn't supposed to be the hero of the story. I have a tendency to change things in midstream. And so the hero of the story was a character named Ankadon, who was an offshoot of the pharaoh. He was an alien version of the same pharaoh of the same name. And he was supposed to be the hero of the series. And Dreadstar didn't come in as the muscle until the 5th episode. But it became very clear to me really quickly that he was much more interesting than anybody else in the series. And so he took over quite quickly. And at the end, my hero, who I started the thing off with, I decided I was going to blow holes in him and have Dreadstar walking off to become whatever this series was going to become later on after the first installment. And it went from there.
Jaimie, when did you, I mean, obviously, again, when you first approached Jim, you wanted a Dr. Doom sketch, but when did Dreadstar come into your consciousness?
Oh, God. Dreadstar's before my time. Like, I didn't read them as a kid. It was much, much later. But I did start, like, I just love reading old comics. And a friend of mine had, like, a ton of stuff. And I was just hanging out one day, and they were taking forever getting ready. And it's a stack of books. And I was like, what's Dreadstar? And I started flipping through them. I was like, hey, can I borrow these? And wound up reading, like, a ton of them. And just went, like, now that I've got the whole omnibus, I'm sure, I know I missed a couple there, when I was getting them, but no, I just found it really interesting, and I thought it was unique, and I love Eddie, so.
Very cool. Listen, obviously I can ask questions all day long, but this is your opportunity to ask questions, so please get up and, yeah, absolutely. Oh, good, I'm so glad someone's already.
He didn't take a lot of prompting, did he?
That's good.
I was just wondering if you had any plans to do new versions of the omnibuses?
Yes, we're going to probably break them up and do softcover versions of it. The omnibuses are the first run of Dreadstar that went for like 60 issues. We've reprinted all of my versions of it. There was a run that Peter David did. We're trying to get the rights to reprint those also. But it's over 1,500 pages.
Wow.
The three omnibuses all together. There's some other stuff in the back that we use as filler, but it is basically Dreadstar from Metamorphosis Odyssey up until I think it's like issue 40 of his own comic book. In which case Peter David took over after a bit, and that became sort of work for hire.
Who was the original publisher of Dreadstar?
That's an interesting story because I own the rights to it. The original publisher was Epic Illustrated.
Okay, of course, yes.
Somewhere along the line, I pissed off somebody up at Marvel in the bookkeeping department, and I suddenly stopped getting paid.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, my checks were being issued, and somewhere between being issued and getting to the mailroom, they were getting thrown into the trash.
Jesus.
And I went for like 6 months without getting a check from Marvel, and I finally broke the contract, and we took it over to First.
Okay, sure.
And
Evanston, Illinois, right next door to my town.
Yes,
First
we worked,
absolutely.
did it at First up until the time First started disappearing.
Yes.
That was, I finished off my run, and Peter Davis started his run on it.
Okay.
Right?
Pardon?
Peter Davis at Malibu, right?
Peter David was also at Malibu, which is the next version I was going to get to, which was a female version of Dreadstar.
Cool.
Who will be coming back in the Dreadstar versus Dreadstar. In fact, the way we worked it out is Peter David's Malibu version is the Lord Papal's version of what happened.
Yes.
And what we're doing is what really happened.
Because we were trying to tie it all in together, and it was like, this doesn't work. So we really sat and powwowed that one. We had to go find all of Peter David's and read them through. And
Yeah, and basically we're doing a Rashomon, you know.
Sure.
The multi-stories. And,
different perspectives, yeah.
You know, it's years later, and Dreadstar has to explain Kala, his daughter, to Willow, who...
don't give too much away.
Yes. And that's just the first 2 pages. It hasn't been too
Yeah,
far.
but they haven't read it yet.
Yes. So it's a complicated family drama.
I like it. No, and I can tell.
And then after that,
No.
there was a small run at Dreadstar in reprint version through slave labor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great company.
They did like...
I work for it already.
Yes, I mean, nobody's ever seen any of those. And then we did Ominous, and
Now you're.
my characters tend to outlive their publishers.
That's great.
So
You're here.
Ominous is gone, and now we're at Monkey Wrench. And
Exactly,
hopefully
yeah.
they will stay for a bit.
That's great. Excellent here. Sir.
Hi. What works of art or fiction do you look to when you created Dreadstar and the other cosmic comics beyond?
Gee. Yeah, I mean, all the works of fiction and art and that, they come in, but they're never actually really the impetus to what you create. It's the walking around in the woods or the driving in the car, and it's thinking about a piece of work and what it didn't do that you might like to do instead. So everything is, like I said, with Dreadstar was supposed to start off as a fairy tale. I'd been working with Mike Plug out in California on the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that with Ralph Bakshi. And I wanted to do a fairy tale. And, well, I'm not a real fairy tale guy. As you may have noticed, the Metamorphosis didn't last as a fairy tale. I mean, I got one fairy in there with an afro who's really kind of nice, and Za was kind of a fairy tale creature, but everything else sort of went dark and science fiction-y. And so there's no direct line from any one thing. And Dreadstar, I've been doing it for, God, how many years? So there's always been something else that's pushing it in, including Jaimie. Jaimie comes in now, and she's putting her 2 cents into where the series is going. She didn't like Willow's outfit.
No.
I
was like, no, this needs an update. This is not sexy anymore. He kept saying, well, I was going for the Gibson hair. I thought he meant Debbie Gibson. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like,
I'm talking Charles Egan, but you know.
Yeah, now I know what it was, but at
Jim,
the time.
I was wondering, Jim, because I was a little kid in the early 70s, and Eric Von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods, all this interesting stuff seemed to elevate science fiction and space opera beyond. And I love the traditional stuff. I'm a big Flash Gordon fan, people like that. And what you did with Captain Comet, even in Mystery in Space, and how you played with him as well. But and I've talked to Steve Englehart about this too. You guys were hippies and everything, and you'll forgive me for just the generalization. But no, and I understand that probably some of the recreational things you were doing helped inspire ideas.
Were drugs involved? No comment.
Indeed.
I already told you how he gets his inspiration.
But no, there was really interesting sci-fi ideas. Were you a reader of that stuff? I mean, and again, even the paperback covers.
Oh yeah, I
were
love
really
Roger
evocative.
Zelazny. I was a big Roger
Yes.
Zelazny fan.
Sure.
And earlier, by the time I got into this, out of the service and into working at Marvel, I wasn't reading as much science fiction. It had been all before. I started hanging out with Howard Chaykin, who was into 30s detective stuff, and that's where I went off into my binge at that point. The science fiction always had a effect.
While Dreadstar was at first, Ostrander was doing Grimjack.
Right.
And that was another detective as science fiction and stuff too. Did you ever worry about, I don't know how much you talked to them about, and I'm forgetting now who the artist was for Grimjack back then. But like, did you ever talk to John or anybody about?
No.
Okay.
I just came in doing my own thing.
Sure.
I knew Chaikin, who was doing an American flag over
Absolutely.
there.
Yep.
Half the stuff they were doing, I was vaguely for Nexus I really loved.
Sure, my God.
Matt Baker and who's the damn artist?
Steve Root. Steve Root,
yes.
very good. The dude,
I love
absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
stuff. But I was vaguely aware of Grimjack and that, so, but
Was it Truman? Tim Truman?
Truman, I think.
Yeah, Druid. Okay, yeah. With John, yeah.
Basically, I just sort of came in and I was the new kid on the block.
Sure.
I did some fanzine cover somebody was asking me about this weekend that had all the characters in it, but in fact, there was a huge leg sticking in this cover. I have no idea which character that was at this point. A giant leg coming out of the cover.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sir.
Two questions. For both, questions for both of you. Playing casting director, who would you cast or voice actor in Dreadstar?
For Dreadstar, Charlie Hunnam would be perfect. I think he has got the look, the build. I think he'd be great. Yeah.
I've been considering Ross Marcotte.
Excuse me?
I've been considering Ross Marcotte.
Mark Hahn, Ross, Walking Dead.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
I see him more as our Eddie, but whatever.
Second question is, there a particular work of yours, Mr. Starlin, that you don't think gets the attention, like Dreadstar and like Thanos and some of the Marvel characters?
Gilgamesh too.
Okay.
Ooh.
Decent.
Yeah, I like that serials. It's a science fiction adaptation of the epic poem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Hi, Mr. Starlin, I just wanted to ask, what is it about, like, kind of the cosmic setting and approach that you generally work in that appeals to you and inspires you, and just kind of the why of it all?
Science fiction, yeah. Why science fiction?
Because I don't have to draw either horses or cars.
Oh, trust me. Thank God he doesn't. Thank God he doesn't. The paws on the feet of the feet of a dog would probably go this way.
No, it's basically I like setting up worlds and that. And I was taught early on that you don't want to be preachy about what you're writing. And sometimes it's very difficult to talk about a subject that is relevant to you or to the real world, set in the real world, and it's much easier to do it in a different setting. There was a early Star Trek thing where there was these alien races where one was black on one side and one was white on the other. And it was one of the most amusing things I've ever seen on bigotry in my life, and it was a lot more interesting than if they had pounded you on the head saying, you shouldn't dislike other people. But, and that's one of the reasons I go for science fiction. Though I have had some forays into the crime thing with Batman and that,
Thank you.
Yeah, you go back and read some of those classic pulps, and they're detective stories. But I mean, Doc Smith did the Lensmen, which you can compare to Green Lantern, and they were space cops, and they really were just cops in space. I mean, that's essentially...
And kept getting more powerful and powerful as they went on. That
Yep.
was one of the most fascinating things about the series.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hello. My brother, when I was about 11 or 12, my brother bought a copy of Dreadstar and Company #3, newsprint reprint from like some 50-cent bin or something. And it was the issue where the city, I think it was Chicano, was blown up by a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And that's a very intense comic to read at 11 or 12 years old. But it stuck with me, and I've loved Dreadstar ever since. And I was just kind of curious, what made you decide to go back to the Dreadstar world after such a long absence from it?
I didn't want to work for Marvel or DC anymore.
There.
I'd gotten a second life as a cartoonist by the Marvel movies, taking all these characters and putting them on the screen. And I thought, well, if I got this notoriety, let's exploit it somewhere, and let's exploit it somewhere where it's not benefiting Marvel or DC, where it's benefiting me. And that was sort of the secondary thing, and you.
And Jaimie.
And the secondary thing was, let's do something that's going to be fun. And the farther I went along, and when I brought you on, the more it became fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We used to powwow during COVID. I mean, yes, even when I was sick, which was really fun because when I was hallucinating, really sick, and I'd say this crazy stuff. And I wish she had actually took notes because some of it was probably really good. But we'd sit there and I'd either FaceTime if I could and talk about the storyline or talk about changes here or there, or it's like, if I ink this and I change this, is that okay? And he's like, you're supposed to change stuff. I want to make it better and make me look good. And I was like, oh, good, because I changed a lot on this. But no, it was fun.
And we had interesting moments where, like we'd be talking on the phone, and I say, I got to do this creature in the next page. It's in my notes it said strange creature, but what was it?
I said Venus flytrap. I don't know what I said, but I just said I put all this stuff of things. I was like, put them all together and make one. And then he decides I gotta make it one up because I can't let it just be our creature. So he puts a floating eyeball. I was like, that was your contribution? Really?
So, we've had some really good moments having fun with this. So that was the main emphasis, is do something that you enjoy.
That's awesome. Dreadstar Returns is great. I'm really looking forward to Dreadstar versus Inevitable. Thank you very much.
Thanks. It'll be as soon as we've had so much trouble getting this second book out. We had a letterer who disappeared for a month and a half.
We both dislike this letterer.
Oh, we're gonna kill him if we ever see him.
Yeah, it's like, don't ever come meet us. He put word balloons over the wrong characters, and it's like, did you read the book? Did you look at the pictures? He misspelled a lot of words.
And he put balloons on top of people's head, and then this is part of the process. You have to make changes because things don't work out. But he sent this really vitriolic letter back on, these people want too many changes, and I'm going, hey, dude, you're covering up our characters' heads. You got to just move them over. This is on a computer. This is not like slave labor.
Right.
And so he disappeared for a month. He just left us there, and he screwed up all our deadlines, and so we were supposed to have this book out by now.
Oh yeah, I asked Ron Mars as the head of Monkey Wrench, and I was like, Ron, when's our book coming out? Oh, it just went to the press yesterday. What? And he saw my face. We looked at each other like, what? It was because this letterer.
Yeah, the letterer followed everything up because everybody else had things set up to do. The IT guy didn't get his work in, so he was already scheduled to go to San Diego, and so had to wait another couple of weeks. It's you get to a certain point in the project, it becomes an assembly line, and if somebody knocks it out, the whole thing falls.
It's like dominoes.
Yeah.
Oh, just fell over.
Yeah, but take one out of the sequence and then the product stops.
Yeah.
The momentum stops.
But it is at the printer at this point.
Excellent.
We have been guaranteed that finally.
Yes. And we have a great letterer for the next
Yes,
one.
bringing back Jack Morelli, who did all my lettering on the Infinity Wars,
Sure.
gauntlets and stuff like that. He lives in the area and he's reliable. He's an adult. And
It helps.
And I know where he lives, so he can't disappear on me for 2 months.
Are the two of you self-editing? Do you have an editor that is...
Ron is technically the editor, but
Okay.
let's really face it, Jim. Who's the editor?
He is the
Boom. I
best
want my credits.
proofreader I have ever seen.
Thorough.
I can go over it and I can get 6 or 7 things. She comes down there and she goes, well, she's also editing my script, which is...
Okay, the first Dreadstar Returns, I had already edited the thing 3 times. And then Ron's like, I need you to edit it again. I sent you all my changes. I go through and they lost all the stuff. There was a word in there and I was like, what, are you trying to scalp the guy? This doesn't even mean, do you know what that word means? I remember talking and being like, this is a big one.
What was it again now?
The word, I'm trying to, well, if you Google the word to scalp, I'm sure it will pop up. Because I knew the word when I read it, now I can't remember the word. But
To what?
It
to
was a
scalp
typo.
somebody.
Oh, to scalp somebody.
Yeah, it was not at all part of the story. It was,
Sure.
I was like, this is so weird. No, I like
Yeah, we
editing.
tell this story, I ought to remember what that is,
Yeah.
Next time we do this panel, I'll have that word down.
I was just talking about how do I get into the editing side of things. He's like, what, are you going to lead Dreadstar? I was like, no, I just want to be the editor too.
No, it's important. I didn't know that Ron is behind Monkey Wrench. I know he was with Ominous.
Ominous, yeah.
Ominous, thank you. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. What are the challenges of doing? And obviously, you've gone from publisher to publisher, but what are the challenges now compared to the '80s during that black and white boom? when Dreadstar was first coming out?
I wasn't born yet.
Well, there you go. She said that for my audio audience. Jaimie just said, I wasn't born yet.
Now that I can do anything on. I used to, at the end of the day, come down after working and I'd have multiple colors all over my hands. And it'd take a half hour to clean up.
Lava, yeah.
Yeah, and now I come down and I go, okay, there's nothing to clean up. Well, except for these
Pencil
things.
and ink.
Do you-
I have the complete opposite.
Do you still do pen and paper, or do you?
I am a traditional
Okay,
inker.
okay.
I do it on pencil,
I
and then we go, we're analog at the beginning, then it becomes all digital.
Sure, you scan it.
Computer.
I'm hip. Yeah. No, that's...
Lettering, coloring,
And I do blue lines of every page. I've started actually doing them as green lines. I'm like, I want to know what it looked like before, after, if there's something that's changed, if anything spills, like my ink. Like, I won't have the problem of, oh crap, you have to redraw this page. That's probably the only digital part I do.
this woman is like, every job she's denuding entire forests with just the number of copies she makes.
Atta girl. That's her. The earth can handle it, don't worry.
Yes.
Well, I recycle.
Oh, well, good. There you go. We obviously have been talking mainly and did want to mainly talk about Dreadstar, but also we do want to give you an opportunity because we are reaching closing minutes. If you do have Marvel questions or DC questions, we certainly will take them. So please, if you don't mind using the microphone, sir.
That's okay.
Oh, man. All right. I'll repeat it. Don't worry.
I think my voice is loud enough.
Go ahead.
How about Breed? Any movie?
The Breed, great DC character.
I enjoyed that a lot.
Indeed. So possibly more Breed, Jim?
Anybody interested in bringing that out again?
Once again, I haven't been focusing on getting that done, but we are, the next offering from Monkey Wrench is going to be a Kickstarter for the entire Breed series.
Oh, great.
Yeah, you'll be able to get it in one big book that you can knock a cow out with. This is how I judge literature.
This is
Yes.
the original stories.
This is the original story.
Okay.
It's a new cover, but other than that, it's the original stuff.
But it's great that it got reverted back to you, and DC's not going to hang on to it. Or
Breed was never DC's. Breed was
who was that character?
Gilgamesh too.
Yeah, but there was the comic stories, and then it wasn't a half and half.
Well,
book?
there was a Hardcore Station, which I did for DC, which I never relinquished the rights to. I brought Hardcore Station back when I was doing
Mystery in Space.
Mystery in Space and all those other ones, the science
Strange
fiction
Adventures,
ones.
maybe.
But I leased that to DC at the time, and it's
Okay.
always back there. And I've done other stories with Hardcore Station since then.
Would you indulge me, because and this is non-science fiction, but I was blown away. We had a Robin panel a couple years ago here at Terrificon, and Denny O'Neil, before he passed, was on that panel. Jim was on the panel, Mike Barr, and Pete Tomasi and Tim Seeley, I believe. And you told the story of the infamous 800 number of, do we want to keep Jason Todd or do we want to kill him? And unfortunately, and forgive me because I know you're obviously doing great now and stuff, but they kind of made you the fall guy for the corporate. Yeah, tell the story, Jim. You'll tell it better than me.
If you don't know, they killed off the second Robin, and he became the Red Hood. But
yeah, this was. Do you want to save him? Do you want to kill him? It was fighting the Joker.
They did this thing where it was an 800 number, and you called in, you paid 50 cents. DC got 25 cents, and then and it came out almost statistically even. There was, out of 10,000 votes, there was only 70 some odd difference, and so Robin died. But they never bothered to tell the licensing department up at DC. And they hit the roof once they heard, because they had all these pajamas and lunch boxes,
birthday cakes,
and everything else that had Robin on it. And they were saying, whose fault is this? You're screwing everything up. And being the corporation that DC and Warner Brothers are, they started going down the line to say, well, it's his fault, his fault. And finally, by the time they got to me, there was nobody behind me. So within about a month or so, everything I had been doing up at DC, including Batman and Gilgamesh 2 and the New Gods, it all evaporated. I had written their best-selling book that year, but they wanted to get rid of me. And usually that sounds like a terrible story, but what happened was I immediately went over to Marvel and I wrote the Infinity Gauntlet instead. And so, as usual, me getting fired works out pretty good.
That's why I keep trying to get fired. I want to stay long.
No, honestly, Jim, that's the best part of that story is that everything worked out great. And my God, the epic that we got instead. Because I was reading all what you were doing at DC, and it was, he was this great, fresh take on Batman among the other things he was doing. And it's like, hey, what happened to Jim Starlin? Because we didn't have the internet back then. And I don't even think, even the fan magazines would never put in, Jim Starlin got let go from Batman.
Well, always with DC was always strange. I did this thing called the Cosmic Odyssey. And
loved it. Yeah.
They did a book up at DC called Book of Magic, and they wanted something like that. Well, Book of Magic was all their magic characters in one story, and they said, we want to do something like that with a science fiction thing and map out the science fiction universe of DC. I stayed with that idea for about 10 minutes and then went off and did whatever I did on the Cosmic Odyssey, and nobody caught it until we were like the 3rd issue, and the powers that be up at DC went, this is not what we wanted. And it's too late for us to do anything about it. But we're not going to probably give you any more work after this because we're just going to put this book out. People will forget about it. And you can just go on and do whatever you want because you didn't do what we said. Well, let's see, that's 40 years now that they've been paying me royalties on this book.
It's you and Mignola, right?
Yeah, me and Mike Mignola. Mike decided he didn't want anything to do with him afterwards either. So he went off and did the movie stuff with Hellboy.
Yeah, he fell up as well. I don't think, we never heard from Mike Mignola again after that.
So, it all worked out, but they were very mad and they said we were going to go down to Tube, so. But like I said, I still get royalties every 6 months on that. So.
And Jaimie, honestly, your thoughts on this too. It's kind of a parable or a comparison of what's happening now in Hollywood. And I don't mean the strikes. There's a great, I don't know if you guys are watching it, there's a great TV show on the CW called 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. And it's focusing not just on the nerd movies of the period, Officer and a Gentleman, Night Shift, the Ron Howard movie with Henry Winkler, all these great movies. And Dean Devlin, the creator of Stargate, among other things, was just talking about, I want to go and I'm pitching all these new, fresh ideas. Had one idea, all the studios said, man, that's great, we'll never make it. Why not? Because it's not based on anything. And you need outliers like Jim or just fresh, conceptualists to come up with great ideas. And that was the thing, man. You turn these negative moments into positives. All right, fine. They don't want me anymore. Let me do something else. And truly, from the ashes, things like Dreadstar and stuff. But, I don't know, Jaimie. I mean, again, obviously, I'm so glad that you were able to collaborate with Jim on all this stuff. But any thoughts on this crazy stuff now? And
I've marched for an hour. I'm in the middle of a move, but I did go and march for an hour. I've got tons of friends out there. I saw Sean Gunn out there marching, and I'm all for it.
Are you in the WGHA? Or in any of that?
I'm right. I'm
sure.
And I just support all these people because this is ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you know that if you go and you're like an extra and you get paid for 1 day's worth of work, they can just put you back in, not with AI.
Well, that's what they want to do.
This is like the future, for people that live off this stuff. If everything is doable from a machine, from an AI, then there's no work, and you're signing off your rights the second you're seen or you've written something, and that's not okay.
No.
It's not okay. So I'm pro-protest.
I'm a SAG member from a broadcast capacity as well. And this is wrong. Like Jaimie's describing, it's one thing to punch in a bunch of orcs in a Tolkien-based movie or something. It's another thing for literally, if you don't know the story, that, they will scan you completely. There was a movie back in the day, Looker, the Susan Day movie from the early 80s. And there was one 10 years ago with Robin Wright, and she plays herself, where it's like, well, you're getting old, why don't we body scan you, and then we'll use this 3D image of you in perpetuity. You'll stay young. And it's like, but will I get paid for this stuff? No. It's...
Check out the first episode of the new season of Black Mirror, too. There's a good story with Selma Hayek.
Selma Hayek, yeah. Good stuff.
You going to say something?
I was going to, but I'm not.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. No, do you stay away from other sci-fi things so as not to be influenced by stuff that's out there? No? Okay.
No.
You can still enjoy, obviously.
I love sci-fi. I mean,
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov.
Oh.
I have all the little magazines, and I've collected them for the years. I mean, they were older than me, but I wanted them, and I had to have them. And I love like sci-fi and seeing other people's takes. You can like get inspired by it, but not rip them off. You know, like my mind goes in different directions.
We're reaching the last minutes. Are there other questions, folks, of Jim's work or whatever? Please, sir.
I'm throwing out another great paperback you did, Among Madmen. Any action on that?
Among Madmen, a paperback that Jim did.
It was a self-biography.
Sold options on that, I think at least 3 times, but nothing's ever happened with it.
Did you say sold that? Oh.
I sold the options.
To make movie or TV
to make
from?
movie. 90% of the things that get sold, get started as projects and movies never happen.
Sure.
You sell an option, you're basically saying, okay, you guys can, for the next 6 months, shop this around, see if you can get a producer, see if you can get a studio to do it. And there's been various times, maybe it's not, I think it's Thinning the Predators that got 3 times. Among Madmen, I think we've done twice. There's another book called Lady L, I think, that did option on that one time.
It's weird. Among Madmen, it's such like before Walking Dead came out, that reminds me a lot of it. And it's like, oh wow, that sounds a lot like it.
That's why I think it hasn't ever actually made it into movie, because they think it's
Now they're
more
saying it's a
Walking
little
Dead.
too close to that, but you had it first. And
Yeah, but, doesn't make any difference in the long run.
Have you had the opportunity, because obviously sci-fi is tied to Universal and Peacock, and that's one of the streamers. Have you had a chance to talk to streaming people as well as the traditional studios?
We had a great meeting, but like
I don't know if you could, NDAs, I don't want to mess you up.
no, we've just had some great meetings with, and we're still working. We're working with this great. He writes some of my favorite childhood cartoons and stuff, and we're definitely shopping out. But again, everything is
So
Hollywood is dead right
and the
now.
ambition is to make Dreadstar an animated product, not
necessarily.
That's an option.
Okay,
but
sure.
It is, I don't want a movie, I want a
It's got to be a series.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
1,500 pages just of the original work.
Magnum opus, yeah, absolutely. So again, right now underway, Kickstarter campaign for Volume 3?
There was
Will be.
Okay, or starting soon? Okay.
Probably in January somewhere.
Okay,
Around
well,
that area.
from a podcast standpoint, you're both invited to come on my little puppet show and
Love
talk
to.
more about it and
Will
stuff.
do.
There was one more question.
Oh, yeah, please. I'm sorry. So, yeah, thank you, Jaimie. Well done.
What does it feel like for you to get your characters all adapted to either small screen or big screen in general? Just like, what is your thought process when you see all that stuff and it starts to move forward and that development?
His head fills up like a helium balloon.
It's just, there's only one word to describe it, it's surreal. After the Infinity War came out, I was at a convention after the weekend after the premiere and made it home, and quite frankly, I was stepped out into the backyard and was taking a leak and said, well, that 15 minutes of Andy Warhol fame is done. I can get back to my life now. I walked back into the house, turned on the television to this VCR, to this DVD copy of The Late Show that I had recorded before I left the convention so that I could watch Stephen Colbert. And he immediately sat down and did a Thanos joke. And I went, this may last a little bit longer than 15 minutes.
I have a question. How did you record it on a DVD?
Not
leave him alone.
DVR.
Leave it alone.
I am technically inept to
She's
for
messing
coloring.
No, it's good.
She's
That's
our
excellent.
IT gal here.
All right, literally last question. Go ahead, sir.
After your performance in the Infinity War, any more acting gigs?
Yeah. He's in Endgame.
Boycotted it.
In the where if you didn't recognize Jim in the when everyone's having the group therapy session of after the snap and stuff, Jim's one of the main people right there.
No,
Yeah.
you got to hear his acting skills. What was his line? And what about you? Right? It seems pretty simple. You tell him.
We did like about 8 takes. Not my fault, my fault. They just do 8 takes. And we were working our way toward lunch, and in the scene, the director, Joe Russo's, has got like 4 lines before I'm supposed to say, "What about you?" And I hadn't had enough coffee. And Joe starts off his, like in about the 7th or 8th take, and he starts off his little bit of dialogue, and I go, "I don't remember what my line is." And he gets through his second one, and I'm going, "Oh my God, I don't remember what that damn line is. It's 3 words I remember." And he gets through his third sentence, and by that time I'm biting my nails. And I'm going, come on. And he finishes his line, and it hits me. And instead of me going, "And what about you?" it came out, "And what about you?" And Chris Evans and Russo's turn and look at each other and go, "I don't think we're going to use that take." So that was my embarrassing moment on that.
Very good.
And they haven't invited me back for another cameo since.
So, and what is your table on the floor?
We're on the J side.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the way
J row.
towards the photo ops people.
Okay.
Yeah, far side of the room, just before the celebrities.
Find Jaimie and Jim. Get your QR card so you can follow the Dreadstar campaigns. And man, this has been great. It's great to see you. It's so nice to meet you, Jaimie.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Good luck. Continued success to these people. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody.